Now to the latest on Casey Anthony, the Florida mother accused of murdering her young daughter. NBC's Kerry Sanders has some new details this morning on the connections between this case and the O.J. Simpson trial. Good morning, Kerry.
Well, good morning, Natalie. More documents are being released today detailing the state's case against Casey Anthony. Caylee Anthony's mother has now been in jail for 5 months. And as this continues, her birthday was celebrated on Thursday.
On her 23rd birthday, Casey Anthony sat most of the day alone in her cell. A jail log shows on Thursday she had no inmate phone calls, no video visitations. The only people she did see were 2 lawyers on her defense team. Her only surprise, a $100 deposit into her commissary account from her father, George. Accused of killing her 2-year-old daughter, Caylee, with a trial still at least 7 months away, the defense team is beginning to show its strategy. First, Casey's image. From the days when she sported sunglasses to when she was arrested to her multiple appearances in court, each time a different look. Jury consultants say it's important to begin softening her image.
In the beginning, she had that cold, indifferent, killer kind of look. Somebody that had no emotion. Now they are trying to give her emotion, have her look like a mom who has lost her child.
There were approximately 17 hairs that Dr. Lee found that you did not.
The defense team is also beginning to lay out its strategy to take on the forensics. It's expected prosecutors will rely heavily on that science. So when it was revealed defense expert Dr. Henry Lee, who helped defend O.J. Simpson, found 17 hairs in Casey's trunk after the Orange County CSI team had finished studying it for clues, it became clear the defense team will attack the state from its initial gathering of evidence.
Well, it tells us that the car was not completely processed at the time that it was allegedly processed by the law enforcement, with all the implications that that entails, and we intend to get into that at trial.
Meantime, the land where Casey Anthony's body was found is up for sale, and some are now asking if the memorial to Caylee that is on the side of the road that leads to an elementary school should be taken down.
No amount of teddy bears is going to bring her back. I kind of feel bad saying that, but then again, I mean, at what point are you going to stop? You're just going to keep, going with it?
Also beginning to come out are the subpoenas of those who will be called to testify. Among those served are Casey's parents, her one-time boyfriend, and her childhood friend, somebody she used to play with in the woods right here where her daughter's body was found. Natalie?
Kerry Sanders in Orlando. Thank you, Kerry. Dan Abrams is NBC's chief legal analyst. Good morning, Dan.
Morning, Natalie.
The fact that they've brought Dr. Henry Lee, of course, we remember him from the O.J. Simpson trial, the chief forensic scientist, and the defense team seems to be focused on these 17 hairs that were found in the car months after that car had been combed through by the evidence teams. What does this tell you?
Well, look, it's a classic defense strategy, which is to say that the prosecutors, and more importantly, the investigators were sloppy here.
They bungled the case from the beginning.
They didn't investigate the way that they should have. The problem is what evidence they didn't find doesn't explain away necessarily evidence that they do find. So if they find incriminating evidence that's introduced at trial, I don't know how helpful it'll be that there was other evidence there, other hairs, et cetera. Now, they would say, well, look, this shows that you can't necessarily trust the evidence that was found. That's always a tough argument to make.
Yeah, but you have hairs, also some stains that were found after the fact. I mean, that combined with the circumstantial evidence in the case, isn't that important, though? If they were missed? Yeah,
look, it's significant, but you can go to any crime scene and you can find certain evidence and recover certain items after the fact that were missed. With that said, this is the classic back and forth you see between prosecutors and defense. But again, I think it's just really important to note that just because they didn't retrieve other evidence doesn't explain away potentially incriminating evidence. All it does is potentially pose doubt is what they're going to be shooting for. Does this put any doubt into the minds of jurors about the physical evidence that was retrieved?
Meanwhile, in these pretrial hearings, we see her image has changed somewhat. She's no longer wearing that jail uniform that we saw her in. Rather, now she's wearing the white cardigan, the purple shirt. How much of a factor is this in potentially influencing a jury pool down the road?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are two issues here. First is before the trial, and the second is at the trial. Before the trial, in a case like this, where there's a camera in the courtroom and the world is watching, look, how she looks matters. People can dismiss it and say, this is insignificant, but the same applies at trial. I mean, jurors are going to be looking at her every day. The world is now watching her on a regular basis. Whether she seems to be taking this seriously matters. How she appears in court matters. Again, the argument...
emotion in her face, what you see when they're talking about her daughter.
We can argue that shouldn't matter, and that's a fair point. But the reality is it does, whether people like it or not.
Right. Meanwhile, also, as Carrie mentioned, they're starting to subpoena, the prosecution's starting to subpoena some of potential witnesses, including her parents, her, Cindy and George, her brother. Also, they're going to call her ex-boyfriend who told police she lied to him about Kaylee's whereabouts. A lot of people who seem to have different stories that came from Casey on the disappearance of her daughter. That's exactly right. I mean, is that the point?
That's exactly right. That's why they want to call these people. These are not going to be witnesses who are going to come forward and say, I believe she did it.
Right.
These witnesses are going to say, look, here's what she told me. And prosecutors are going to try and build a case that says, you just can't believe the account she gave. She was lying, they will say, from very early on in this case. And that's why they want to call anyone who she spoke with in the days after she disappeared.
To show that the dots don't connect.
That's right. And very, very important witnesses. I mean, imagine if you can get her parents in there to jurors to say effectively, this story doesn't make sense. That's very powerful.
Well, Dan Abrams, always thank you so much.
Sure, Natalie.